Chapter 31. Rat Fishin'. Mud. Mud everywhere. It was that time of year after the snow had stopped falling and before the sun really started to shine. It seemed like all it wanted to do was rain and rain some more. The sky was gray, the trees were bare, and the ground was soggy. It was a hard time of year for a bunch of active boys. But that didn't stop them from trying. Found an old softball one afternoon and headed to the backyard to play. Now, there wasn't much of a backyard. The flat ground had been taken up by a vegetable garden. An outhouse sat in one corner. The hill with the tiny graveyard rose up behind that. Off to one side stood the pole barn for the workhorses, and every bit of it was covered with sloppy mud. Greg was pitching when all of a sudden Eddie got a piece of the ball. It sailed up and over the hill and landed with a soggy thump rolling toward the barn. When the boys ran to fetch it, it couldn't be found. "Get a flashlight from the house," ordered Eddie. "It's under the barn." When a light had been produced, Eddie gingerly squatted down in the mud and aimed into the dark netherworld below the barn floor. What he saw freaked him out. There, running back and forth in the darkness, were rats. Dozens of rats, big and small ones. It was a plague of biblical proportions. All thoughts of the softball disappeared at that moment, and Eddie's mental wheels began to spin. This presented an opportunity for good, clean fun out of the rain and above the mud. "Boys," he ordered, "forget the ball. Go in the house and get a fishing pole from the closet. Grab some cheese and come back as quick as you can." It wasn't long before the boys were back with a pole and bait. They located a large knot hole, flipped over some water buckets to sit on, and Eddie baited the hook with cheese. He lowered it carefully through the hole. "You ever fish for rats before?" asked Greg suspiciously. "Nope. But how hard can it be?" replied Eddie with false confidence. "You just wait for a bite, then jerk his eye teeth out." The boys huddled around, breathlessly intent on the rod tip, waiting for a bite. All of a sudden, the rod began to twitch. Eddie counted under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Wham! Eddie jerked so hard he fell backwards off the water bucket. A shrill squeal pierced the air, followed by the adrenaline-inducing hum of line spooling off the reel. The boys leapt to their feet and began yelling encouragement. Eddie reeled and fought and sweated that rat in until it ran out of running room. Thunk! There was a sound at the hole. When the boys bent over to look, they could see gray fur. A lot of it. That rat was huge. There was no way it was going to get through that knot hole. Fortunately, the hole was at the edge of one of the floorboards. Eddie kept tension on the line and carefully maneuvered it to the crack between the boards, over to where it widened out for one of the barn posts. As soon as there was clearance, Eddie pulled up hard and hoisted the rat up into the air. As he stared at the furious rat hanging from his line, it dawned on him that he hadn't really planned far enough ahead to know what to do with the rat if he actually managed to catch one. But here he was, and there it was. Its squeals had attracted the attention of 3 or 4 hungry barn cats, and their eyes glittered as they stealthily approached. Eddie hoisted the rat higher in the air, worriedly looking at the cats. All of a sudden, 2 cats went for Eddie. In their frenzy to get at the rat, they began climbing Eddie's britchy legs, their claws going right through to the meat. He had to do something fast. Eddie swung that rat in a circle over his head, and in a mercifully quick moment, he smacked it against the barn wall, putting it out of his misery. Took a couple more moments to get the cats off Eddie and get him out of his misery. He sat shakily down on his water bucket, reeled in his line, and packed up the bait. "Boys," he said, "that is how you go rat fishing." They wisely declined to give it a go themselves. They also decided to let the rats keep their softball.